In that bid to address ongoing discrimination, the South African Human Rights Commission is holding its first Rights of Rastafari Roundtable. The Commission has expressed deep concern over the continued marginalisation of the Rastafari community, citing issues like unlawful cannabis arrests, high unemployment rates among them, school expulsions and exclusion from the cannabis industry despite constitutional protection. Let's welcome now Professor Tshepo Madlingozi. He is the Commissioner for Justice, Education, Anti-Racism and Equality at the South African Human Rights Commission. You've just seen him there in that clip preceding our interview. He joins us now. Professor or Commissioner, welcome to SA Today. So quite a groundbreaking dialogue, long overdue, as the Rastafari communities have long been a part of our society. What critical issues came out on day one? And as the roundtable continues, Professor, what issues do you hope will be addressed?
Thank you for having us, and thank you to you and your viewers. Yes, the dialogue is a historic dialogue. It is ongoing. We've just heard from the NPA as well as SABC. And really, the issues that are coming up, it's very clear that we are dealing here with a question of systemic discrimination. There's no doubt about that. We are dealing with an issue of societal prejudice. You know, the right to education, as you've said, has been violated, where Rastafari kids or children are unable to go to school. A lot of unemployment because of unfair labor practices relating to Rastafari. So it's very clear that as a society and as a commission, we really need to engage in proactive measures to do right by this community. This is a community that continues to be marginalized. The Cannabis for Private Purposes Act came out last year, and the community thought that with that act, you know, cannabis will be decriminalized and some of the stigma will go away. But that continues, and we're engaging with the Department of Agriculture, we're engaging with the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition to see how cannabis can be regulated in a way that doesn't continue the stigma and the marginalization of this community.
While we're on that part of cannabis, Professor, I mean, the fact that the Rastafari were largely excluded from the marijuana boom after its legalization in the country, I mean, we understand it's actually virtually impossible for them, in fact, black marijuana or cannabis business enthusiasts to even get into the sector. And one would expect, as a people who have long used the plant as a spiritual part of their life and know practically everything about the plant, should have at least been at the forefront of such businesses. So for me, Professor, it's also not just about that discrimination at business level. I mean, first and foremost, these are humans. Let's start there. Yet we are still hearing of incidents where kids are discriminated against at schools, be it for their hair or religious practices. Yet we can accommodate the rest of the multicultural and religious groups in other aspects of our lives. So South Africa promotes non-racialism, discrimination against anyone for their beliefs. So why has society seemingly just simply pushed the challenges that is faced by the Rastafari aside?
There's no question that this is the unfinished business of decolonization. A lot of colonial attitudes inform society, some sectors in the state, as well as big business, the way they relate to this community is very colonial. It is sometimes anti-black. They speak about being profiled by the police just because of their appearance. They speak about going to hospitals and experiencing obstetric violence from nurses and from doctors, and therefore, you know, losing, you know, their babies. You know, so what we are dealing with here is a failure to proactively rectify the injustices that this community has been, you know, laboring under. You know, it is unfair that this community is experiencing a double jeopardy in a sense that in the past, they fought for the recognition of cannabis and the legalization of cannabis, but now that there is commercialization, the licensing process it is so expensive and prohibitive that they cannot benefit from commercialization, even though they've suffered the most in keeping, the herb, the plant, cannabis recognized and also, valorized. They also speak of the fact that multinational companies have it easy, when they set up these shops on the high street. If you go to any high street, you will see a cannabis shop, and they are not raided, even though it is illegal to sell cannabis, to deal in cannabis, but you see these shops in every street. But with them, they get raided, their herbs become, confiscated, and it really is a colonial legacy.
A very quick one, Professor. So talk us through then who forms part of this roundtable. How can those interested parties participate, and when and where can they inquire? And also, what happens with the input that you receive at the end of this roundtable?
So we've convened Rastafari people from different provinces, about 20 of them. Additionally, we've got about 10 of them from the Rastafari Nation Council, which is an umbrella body. We also have Rastafari that are independent, that are so-called bush doctors who don't identify with any, sector within Rastafari. State institutions that were present with us today was the Department of Education. We had the National Prosecuting Authority, with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. We also have SABC, and really the engagement has been very fruitful, where participant has been very much solution-driven. What can be done in the short term, issues that include expansion of criminal records, what can be done in the long term in terms of commercialization, legalization. So what we expect to happen is that after today, we'll compile a report that will also inform the regulations that are coming up, that talks to the quantity that a person can possess for private purposes. And then from there, there are issues that we will need to litigate on as a Human Rights Commission so that we can, really do right by this community.
Professor, Commissioner, thank you so much for your input this afternoon. That is Professor Tshepo Madlingozi. He's a commissioner for the South African Human Rights Commission as the body seeks to tackle a Rastafari discrimination.